right, guys, this is part 2 of our class for June the 10th. So you guys, hopefully you did 11, A and B, and then the next page for the practice problems. So let's just check your answers. So for 11A, we have 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. And then 7 to the third power. Let me figure out what 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. 343. And then real quick, I know 27 is divisible by 3, so I'm going to count up these digits. So 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 3 is 10. So I know that this number on the bottom, the denominator, is not divisible by 3 or 9. So it looks like we are finished. So letter B, before we divide, we're going to square 2/3. So we're going to multiply. So I'll just leave 4 divided by 5 by itself, divided by. And then right here, we'll think, okay, what's 2 squared, or 2 times 2 over 3 squared, or 3 times 3? So we get 4/9. So 4/5 divided by 4/9. So now we're going to keep it, change it, flip it. And now our 4s are going to cancel. So we get 9/5. 5 will go into 9 one time with 4 left over. So hopefully you got those 2 correct. On the next slide, number 4, we're going to multiply and divide in order from left to right. So the first thing we're going to do is keep it, change it, flip it. We're ignoring 5/6 for a minute. So here we have 15 over 16. And now we multiply 15/16 by 5/6. Nothing cancels here. So 15 times 5 is what, 75? 75 over 96. 96. All right, oh, wait, are those both divisible by 3? They are. So 75 divided by 3 is 25. And 96 divided by 3 is 32. So now we have it simplified, because those are both divisible by 3, because when I added them up, I realized they're both divisible by 3. All right, letter B, we have to multiply before we're allowed to add or subtract. So just this section right here, we're ignoring 1/2 minus for a minute. So on the second part of it, we're going to multiply. 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 4 is 12. So now we're going to do 1/2 minus 1/12. You have to have common denominators. So since 2 goes into 12, we're going to change the first fraction into something over 12. So something over 12 minus 1/12. Well, 2 times 6 is 12, and 1 times 6 is 6. So when we subtract, we get 5/12, which cannot be simplified. That's our answer. Letter C, we got to do parentheses first, and then we're going to square it. So parentheses always comes before exponents. So for C, if we have 2 over 1, we need a common denominator, so we're going to make a 1 of 5. So let's put it this way. So what times 1 is 5? Well, it's 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. So 10/5 minus 8/5 is 2/5. And now we're squaring 2/5. So 2/5 times 2/5 is equal to 4/25. And that is the final answer. Letter D, we're going to use exponents before we can subtract. So right here, we're thinking, okay, what's 1/2 times 1/2? So the answer is 1/4. So now we're going to subtract 1 over 1. So now our problem is 1 over 1 minus 1/4. We have to have common denominators. So since 1 goes into 4, we're going to use something over 4. Well, how do you get from 1 to 4? You multiply by 4, so we're going to multiply the top by 4. So we're going to let 4/4 represent 1. So 4/4 minus 1/4 is 3/4. And that's the final answer. Letter E, we're going to look at the first two, ignore the third one. We're going to keep it, change it, flip it, the first two. So we're going to keep it, change it, flip it. Our 2 is divided by 2, and our 4 is divided by 2. So here we have 2/3. So now we have 2/3 divided by 1/4. So now we keep it, change it, flip it. Nothing simplifies, so 2 times 4 is 8, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 goes into 8 twice, 2 times 3 is 6, so our remainder is 2. So that is the answer. So hopefully you guys got all that right, I hope so. All right, so let's look at example 12. Excuse me. All right, it says, what happens when you multiply by 0? Which tells me that the answer to this subtraction problem is probably 0. All right, so anyway, let's pretend we don't know that. So first of all, we got to do parentheses first. So 4 and 3, our least common multiple would be 12. So 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. Oh my goodness. Can y'all see what this pen is doing? This is my nemesis. So that's a 9, that's a crazy 9. So then 3 times 4 is 12, so 4 times 1 is 4. So in our first set of parentheses, we have 9 minus 4, which is 5/12. Okay, so we're gonna wait for a minute because we gotta figure out what to multiply it by. Whoopsie, it changed screens on me. Let's change colors and just kind of start over. All right, so now we're looking at just this problem right here. So we know that 2 can go into 4, so we have 2/4 minus something over 4. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, so 2 times 1 is 2. So 2/4 minus 2/4 is 0. So sure enough, we're going to multiply 5/12, which is the first parentheses, 5/12 times 0. Well, what happens when you multiply by 0? You get 0, right? All right, the second question is, what happens when you divide by 0? Well, we see division, so we're gonna keep it, change it, flip it. But guess what happens when you have 0 in the denominator? That is not a real number. So you're not allowed to divide by 0. So the solution does not exist. Even if you type that right into your calculator, it'll tell you you made an error. Application. Suppose your school costs for this term were $2,500 and financial aid covered not all of it, because all of it would be 4/4, but your financial aid covered 3/4. So how much did financial aid cover? So since it didn't cover it, our final answer, would it be more than, equal to, or less than $2,500? It would have to be less than. It didn't cover the whole amount. So our final answer has to be less than $2,500, right? So we're going to multiply. So we want to find out what is 3/4 of that amount. So remember our keyword of. Almost always, if you see a fraction with the word of next to it, it means you're going to multiply. So I'm going to turn 2,500 into an improper fraction by putting it over 1. I want to know what is 3/4 of 2,500. So I wonder if 4 can go into 2,500. Let me see. Let's see what 2,500 divided by 4, is that a whole number? It is. It's 625. So I'm going to go ahead and divide 4 by 4 and get 1, and 2,500 by 4 and get 625. 625, whoops, 625. All right, so now I'm going to multiply straight across. So even though you can't read that, it says 625 times 3. So 625 times 3 is $1,875 over 1. So since I know 1,875 divided by 1 is 1,875, I'm going to stop right there. And is that less than 2,500? Yes. So that answer makes sense. Letter B, if on average about 4/5 of the human body is water weight, comma, how much water weight is present in a person weighing 182 pounds? So a person weighs 182 pounds. We want to know how many pounds of that is water weight. So we want to know what is 4/7 of 182. Well, is the answer going to be more than, less than, or equal to 182? Well, it has to be less than, right? It wouldn't make sense for the water weight to be more than the total weight. So when we get done, if we get a number bigger than 182, we know we can't be right. So we're going to find out what is 1/4 of 182 pounds. So I'm going to put 182 over 1, and I'm going to multiply it by 4/7. Now let me just pause for a second, because a lot of people go, okay, well, how can you multiply and get an answer less than the original? That's what we did on the top, right? We took a number, we multiplied, and got an answer less than what we started with. The answer is because you're multiplying by a number less than 1. If you multiply by a number less than 1, that means your answer has to be less than the one you started with. Does that make sense? All right, so I bet 182 is divisible by 7. And it is. It's 26. So I'm going to go ahead and divide 7 by 7 and get 1. 182 divided by 7 is 26. I don't just know that. I use my little calculator. So now we're going to multiply. Our denominator's 1. That means we can drop it. So I'm going to multiply 26 times 4, and I got 104. So a 182-pound person, 104 pounds of that weight is just from water weight. What does that mean? That means I'm going to stop drinking water. That's what that means. All right, letter C. Sorry, my phone's going crazy. If, while training for a marathon, you ran 920 miles in 3.5 months, how many miles did you run each month? Assume you ran the same amount each month. So we have to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide? So we have a total number of total number of miles, and we're going to do what with it? We're going to divide it out over 3.5 months. So since we're taking a total and we're dividing it out by the total number of months, that means that our math problem is division. So now division is very important that you get the correct number first. Most of the time, I would say a lot of the time, it is the biggest number, but not always. But just think about, what am I dividing up? Am I dividing up months? Nope, I'm dividing up miles. That's what I'm dividing up. So make sure your 920 goes first. All right, so we have 920 over 1. We're going to divide that by 3 1/2. So 920 over 1, we're going to divide that by, we're going to multiply 2 times 3 and add 1. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7/2. So now we're going to keep it, change it, flip it. All right, I wonder if 920 is divisible by 7. I bet it is. I could be wrong. 920 divided by 7. I am wrong. It's not a whole number. So since it's not a whole number, I'm not going to divide by 7, which means I'm going to multiply straight across. So 920 times 2 is 1,840 over 7. So now I want to know, how many full times will 7 go in to 1,840? Well, 7 won't go into 1, but it'll go into 18 2 times. So 2 times 7 is 14. Now subtract, bring down my 4. 7 will go into 44 6 times. 6 times 7 is 42. Bring down my remainder and then bring down my 0. And then 7 will go into 22 2 times. With how many left over? With 6. So it goes 262 whole times with a remainder of 6/7. So 262 and 6/7 what? Well, if I'm running 920 miles over 3.5 months, that means I'm running about 262 and 6/7 months or miles per month. Miles per month. That's what that means. Okay. All right, letter D. If the area of a rectangle is given by the formula area equals length times width, where length is equal to the length, L represents length and W represents width, compute the amount of carpet needed for a rectangular room that's 12.5 feet long and 14.25 feet wide. Your final units will be in feet squared. So we have a rectangular room. The length is 14.5. The width is 12.5. Oops, that's not a half, it's a fourth, isn't it? So that should be a fourth. And we want to know what the area of this room is. And the area is the length times the width. So we're going to multiply the length times the width to find the area of the room. So we're going to multiply 14 times 4. So 14 times 4 is 56, plus 1 is 57 fourths, times 12 times 2 is 24, plus 1 is 25 halves. All right, and nothing simplifies. So I'm going to multiply 57 times 25, and I get a big old number, 1,425 over 4 times 2 is 8. So now, how many times will 1,425, how many times will 8 go into it? My calculator tells me it'll go 178 times. So 178 times 8 is equal to 1,424. So my remainder would be 1/8. Okay, that's a 1. So my final unit will be 178 and 1/8 feet squared. And the reason it's feet squared is because we're multiplying feet times feet. So feet times feet is feet squared. So that should be the final answer. I should have circled all that. Okay. Ooh, that's messy, messy, messy. Sorry about my handwriting, guys. So let's look at the next one. Uh-oh, it's that soup again. A recipe for this soup makes 6 servings. A particular ingredient list includes a quart of water, 1/3 cup milk, 2 beef bouillon cubes, and 4 large carrots. How much of each ingredient would be in each serving? Reduce each fraction and use mixed numbers where appropriate. All right, a recipe makes 6 servings, so 6 total. A partial ingredient list includes 1 cup of water, 1/3 cup milk, 2 beef bouillon cubes, and 4 large carrots. How much of each ingredient would be in each serving? So what are we going to do? So if this is our ingredient list, and we want to divide this up into how much is in each serving, right? So what would we do? What would go first? If we have 1 cup of water, and we want to know how much is in each serving, there's 6 servings, what would we do? We're going to divide. So we have 1 cup of water divided by 6 servings. So we're going to keep it, change it, flip 6 over 1 to 1 over 6. So we would use a 1/6 of a cup of water, or a quart. It says a quart. I said cup, but it's a quart. Anyway, I'm just going to write water because this pen is driving me crazy. So 1/6 quart of water. What about my 1/3 cup of milk for the whole recipe? And I want to know how much are in each of the 6 servings. I'm going to take my cup of milk and I'm going to divide it 6 times. So now I'm going to keep it, change it, flip it. I can divide 3 by 3 and 6 by 3 and get 2. So 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 1 is 1. So so a partial, so how much is involved? 6 servings divided by, my answer can't be right. How much of each ingredient would be in each serving? So I should take my ingredient and I would divide it by 6. Oh, guys, look what I did. I wrote keep it, change it, flip it, but I didn't flip my number. So I knew my answer can't be right. We can't have 2 full cups when originally we only had a third. Whew, I was trying to wonder what I did wrong, but that's what I did. I did not flip it. So let me go back a minute. My bad, please excuse me. All right, so now we're really gonna keep it, change it, flip it, that's better. All right, 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 6 is 18, so 1/18 of a cup of milk. That looks a whole lot better. All right, moving on. So now our next ingredient is 2 beef bouillon cubes. So we're gonna take our 2 cubes and we wanna divide it by each of the 6 servings. So we would do keep it, change it, flip it, make sure I flip it this time. And I get 2 6, which is equal to 1/3, a 1/3 bouillon cube per serving. So that's beef bouillon. Finally, we have 4 carrots. So we're gonna take our 4 carrots and we wanna know, divided into 6 parts, how much is in each serving? So 4, so I keep it, change it, flip it, and I get 4 6, or in other words, 2/3 of a carrot. 2/3 of a carrot. Okay, if that makes sense. Good deal. All right, you try. So you guys try this one and see what you get, and then come back and check your answer. Coffee break. Number 14, Bill earns $10 for every hour he works. Bill earns $10 for every hour he works each week up to 40 hours. Okay, so for his regular pay, he makes $10 an hour. Any additional hours are considered overtime, and he earns time and a half. So 1.5 times his regular pay. All right, if he worked 56 hours one week, what were his total earnings? So this is multi-step problem. So first of all, of these 56 hours, how many of them did he make $10 an hour? Well, he made $10 an hour for 40 hours, right? Which means he made overtime for 16 hours. With me so far? So for 40 hours, he made $10 an hour. And for 16 hours, he made 10 times 1.5. So he made what, $15 an hour, correct? So first thing I want to do is find out that in 40 hours times $10 per hour, we could multiply, that's a multiplication sign. If I multiply 40 times 10, he made $400 for 40 hours, okay? Now we want to know, for 16 hours, he's going to make time and a half. So basically, we would take his salary, $10, and we want to know what is 1.5 times 10, because that's how much he would make per hour. So we're going to do 10 over 1 times, so time and a half means all of 10 and half of it. So 1.5, right? So now we're going to multiply by 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3 halves. So 10 times 3 is 30. 1 times 2 is 2. And 30 divided by 2 is $15 per hour. So for 16 hours, he made $15 per hour. So for 16 hours, he made $15 per hour. So we could longhand that, but I got my calculator, so I'm going to multiply 16 times 15. He made $240 for those 16 hours. So the final question is, what is his total earnings? So what do we do? So of course we add those. He made $400 for the first 40 hours, and then he made $240 for the next 16 hours. And he made a total of $640 for working 56 hours. That's a good part-time job, right? Well, it's not part-time, he's getting overtime. Oh, that was it. I didn't realize that was our last one. Very good. All right, guys, so that is the rest of the 2A. So now you can get all your homework and your quiz done for 2A. Then on, let's see, Monday, we'll do part B, and then your next test will be next Wednesday. Okay, everyone have a good evening. I'll see you at 6 o'clock.